It worked.
It worked.
This is exciting. Last week, if you tuned in, hopefully you did tune in. If you didn't, no worries. But last week, Stories with Kishen kicked off Facebook Live via StreamYard, and this was the first time that this was happening. I was pretty excited about it, and I said that I would come back next week, Tuesday. So I am back again this week. And again, my name is Kishen, and I am the CEO of Me, and you are tuning in to Stories with Kishen, Ordinary People with Extraordinary Lives. And I have with me tonight, it's an interesting relationship, an interesting situation, but I have George, Jeffries Jr. joining me. And so welcome, George.
Thank you for having me.
Yeah, now I'm not sure what you can see. But I'm tuning in, I'm looking at my phone, I'm looking at here. So can you see the comments or anything?
No.
Okay, good, because there aren't any comments. But as people comment and post and let me know that they're connecting, of course, that's a great thing. So again, you are tuning in to Stories with Kishen, Ordinary People with Extraordinary Lives. And we're going to be talking about a topic, and I sort of alluded to it last week, where I asked Chad, I said, have you ever been driving and you see the door of a house and you wonder what's on the other side of that door? And maybe I'm the only one who thinks that way, but as it is with people, you'll see what appears to be one thing, and it's only what they're showing you. So they'll show you a smile, or they'll show you, great conversation, very positive energy, but you don't know what challenges they face unless they share that with you. So George is here, and just to set things up a little bit, at the age of 14, I believe, George was found on the floor by his sister. And the way I recall it, he was in a puddle of blood, and his sister was like, okay, something is happening. I need to call mom, dad, 911. But they came and they took you to the hospital, correct?
Correct. Yeah.
For the most part. So you go to the hospital, and you're 14 years old. So you're in high school. When you're in high school, you're like, yeah, I'm involved with this and I'm involved with that. High school is just like, you just can't explain the importance of high school. I mean, we have a son who's in high school now. So you know the importance of what being in high school is like. So you're taken to the hospital and they diagnose you with ulcerative colitis.
Yes, it took him about 2 weeks to do that, though.
So
they didn't know right away.
So, and even leading up to that, your grandpa, I believe it was, had been sick.
Yeah, he was sick at the same time. He was actually in the hospital with colon cancer.
Mm. So talk about that, because you were going through something similar, and talk about that transition and how you put everything together with what your grandpa was going through, and then, what happened with you.
Yeah. Well, interesting enough, while I was in the hospital, he was in the hospital at the same time, actually. Mm-hmm. And like I said, it took them 2 weeks to figure out what was wrong with me. Once they did figure that out, ulcerative colitis, it was something very similar to what my grandfather was going through. His issue was a bit more serious than mine. Of course, him being older, and at that particular time, where cancer medications and different treatments are now, they weren't there then. So his cancer was progressively getting worse. But it was.
And how old was your grandpa?
I think he was 77 when he passed.
Okay.
Yeah. And while I was in the hospital and I was dealing with my issues, I actually got to talk to him on the phone. We spoke and kind of shared with him what was going on with me, and I knew what was going on with him. And it was actually the last time I got to speak to him. We both told each other we were going to get better and we would see each other, but I didn't get to see him again, but I was able to talk to him, and I still appreciate that, that it happened the way that it happened, that I was able to do that.
Wow.
Yeah.
What type of relationship did you guys have? Because I know your family would travel often down south. But what was that like?
Well, I only got to see my grandparents a couple times a year.
Mhm.
And my grandfather, he was a funny dude. Like my
Oh, is
father.
that where you get it from?
Generation thing. My dad is funny too now, but he's kind of a funny guy. And when I would be down south, I didn't get to spend a lot of time with him because everybody in the family would go down at the same time. So you got all these grandkids and cousins and uncles and nieces and all these people running around. So we kind of couldn't all get that individual time as grandchildren like we really wanted to. But it was fun to be around them, my grandfather and my grandmother. But it was fun. It was a good relationship. I still to this day wish that he got to see me get a little bit older, and I was able to have but deeper conversations with him and spend more time with him. But
Yeah. And I mean, I get it, with my dad recently passing and the relationship that he had with Roman, and they got a they got a chance to, get in with all the kids. They got a chance to develop a relationship with him. But again, it's still that high school age when all this happened and all this took place. So you were in the hospital for how long? Because you were diagnosed 2 weeks later, but that really wasn't the end of it to where you were back into the full swing of your routine.
Right. So crazy thing. Parents come to the hospital. This is after I was diagnosed, and they come in and basically, let me know the news that my grandfather had passed away. So I found out my grandfather passed away while I was still in the hospital. And again, my grandparents lived in Mississippi, where my family is from. And so obviously the first thing in my mind was I'm in the hospital and he's about to have a funeral and I'm not going to be able to make it. So, I know you believe in God, and that was probably my first time having an experience where I was like, yeah, there's definitely a God, because I was very sick, and I was basically told at first, like, there's no way that you're going to make it down to your grandfather's funeral. The car ride is just going to be too rough on you, and miraculously, a couple days later, I was okay and cleared to be able to go down south to the funeral. So it kind of worked out for me. And then, so I go down to the funeral, and it was kind of rough. It was rough, obviously, emotionally and physically for me at the time. Went to the funeral, stayed down.
Y'all drove down there. So how long a drive was that?
I think it's like a 12-hour drive, 11 or 12-hour drive.
Wow.
So
and you're going through, because I'm sure you were weak.
Oh yeah. That ulcerative colitis, if anybody, a lot of it's really a well known illness that people go through, and you lose blood and you don't eat, everything's running out of your body, if you know what I mean. And so you can't build any strength during that time, obviously. And being in the hospital, I wasn't eating. I was just intravenously fed. So yes, I was very weak, and but I wasn't missing that funeral. So I was able to make it down. And when I got back, I think I was back in the hospital like the next week or something.
Oh,
something like
really?
that. Yeah.
So this is during the school year.
Yep. So for me, so this happened to me when I was in the ninth grade. So I'm a freshman in high school, and I think I spent maybe the first 2 or 3 months, not even 3 months, maybe 2 months of my time at school, Ottawa Hills High, um,
Okay.
and and after that, it became very apparent that I was going to be in and out the hospital quite a bit, because it was, although I was diagnosed, the problem was still there and it was very aggressive. So the decision was made that if I wanted to stay on track with school and everything, I was going to have a homeschool, be homeschooled, have a teacher come to the house, which to some kids that might have sounded pretty cool. I only had school for like 3 hours a day, all my subjects, and
Yeah.
but it was, I miss that experience of being a freshman, pretty
Yeah.
much of my life, and so
Well, think about it though. I mean, because now I'm putting things in perspective where we are today with COVID, it's pretty much the same, except you had somebody come into the house to teach you. And right now we're doing this, everything is virtual. So you sort of experienced that at that time for other reasons.
yeah. And it's real tough when you're a kid, especially, not saying that it hasn't been tough on the kids for what they're going through now, but it was very tough because, again, I'm a freshman in high school. I've been waiting all these years to be in high school. And my first year experience was spent 2 months in the school. And then the rest of the time was spent at home at the dining room table with a lady that I didn't know. So,
Right.
and God bless her. I'm sure she done passed on by now because she's about 100 years old when that was going on then.
Dang.
So, but yeah, it was a crazy experience, and little did I know it was just the beginning of years of what was things that were going to happen to me. So
Yeah. So let's talk about that because by the time you and I crossed paths, you had graduated from high school and you were thin. I mean, considering how you are now. And so let's just talk about that because you got somewhat better or established some sense of normalcy. And you were on some meds that sort of help control the ulcerative colitis. But at some point, it had gotten so bad that you were back in the hospital intermittently. So let's talk about that because you were diagnosed at 14. You ended up having a couple of surgeries as an adult as a result of the colitis.
yes. So
So go ahead.
and that'll roll into other things, but so yes, fast forwarding, throughout high school here and there, I would get what is called flare-ups, and that's just when basically ulcerative colitis, what's happening is there is an ulcer on a concentrated area on your intestines, and so that would occur here and there, a flare up where it would start bleeding again. So I was on these medications. At one time in my life, I was taking 14 pills a day.
Wow.
That's in high school. I was taking 14 pills a day, different pills. Um, Mainly was taking steroids, not anabolic steroids, but prednisone, which is used widely for a lot of different things. Basically, any type of inflammation issues, that's a medicine that is used regularly. It's not one that should be used for as long as I was on it. And I was told this, that, you can't take this forever. Like,
Yeah.
it would work. And then another flare would come, it would be worse. We have to, up your dosage. And that just got to be where it was just not healthy for me to do that because it was doing other damage. There's every medication we take, it has a positive and it has a negative. And, it was getting to a point to where the negative part of taking that medicine long term was going to start affecting me. So in
Yeah.
and out of hospital, the hospital for years. And finally, it got to a point where the doctor was like, look, you can't do this. We're going to have to do surgery. And I
And
was.
let's back it up a little bit, because
Sure.
even before you had the surgery, you found out that you had another condition that was
Well,
directly related to the
well,
medicine that you were taking.
well, it kind of leads into that. I found out when so what happened was I had a horrible, horrible flare up where I basically lost so much blood. I was out. I don't remember much of what happened. I just remember passing out and ended up in the hospital downtown. And so they put me in hospital again, and I'm there for a couple of days. And during that time, they did a CAT scan. And during that time of the CAT scan, some other things were seen. So at that time, they still hadn't told me anything extra. So I'll remember it just like it was yesterday. I'm sitting in my hospital in the room, and I knew that they were trying to schedule a surgery to take out the part of my intestine that was causing all the issues.
Mm-hmm.
So the doctor walks in, and he's like, yeah, I'm Dr. such and such. I can't remember his name. And he says, yeah, I'm the oncologist, and I'm 99% sure that you have cancer in your left kidney. And he said it just like that. Like, and I'm just like
wait.
I mean, he said it like, yeah, we're going to clean your teeth today. Like,
right.
like so nonchalant, and he just like it was nothing. And I'm just looking at him like, and I say, oh no, I'm sorry, sir. I said, I think you're in the wrong room. I'm not into that.
Right.
I was like, I don't have cancer. I go, I have ulcerative colitis. And he goes, no, you got cancer too. And I'm just like, what? And for me, there in my life, because I lost my grandfather to cancer, the scariest thing to me in my life at that time was to someday hear I have cancer.
Yeah.
And I heard that. And that was like literally the scariest thing that had ever happened to me in my life. And I'm sitting there, and of course I'm in shock. And he's just like, the good thing is we found it early. So basically, had I not been sick from the ulcerative colitis, this could have gone on. It could have got worse, and it could have spread, but they caught it pretty early because of the CAT scan. So that began a whole nother bag of, here's my life is about to get turned upside down even more, So I'm sitting there, and he's explaining to me what needs to be done. And I'm like, well,
what's going on through your mind at this point? Because
well, I'm scared. Obviously, the first thing is I'm scared. I think I'm going to die because.
And how old are you at this time?
By this time, we have fast forwarded. I'm in my late 20s.
Okay.
So I think I'm going to die. I think I'm going to die young. I have children by now. By this time, I think I'm not going to get to see my kids grow up. I'm not going to be there for them.
Yeah.
When they graduate high school, all these things are just running through my head. I was more worried about that than anything. But, it was just, I'm not going to be here for the people that need me to be here for them.
Yeah.
And so I just said, well, what we got to do? Like, I'm thinking I'm going to have to do chemo and all. He's like, well, because we caught it early, we're going to go ahead and just take your kidney out. And I'm like, what?
So, you're like, wait a minute.
Like, you're talking to a dude who's never had a broken bone or anything. And probably the most I had done, medically, like the most invasive thing was doing an endoscope because of all this colitis stuff that I've had, where they put the camera down your throat or up your rear end, So that was the only things that I've ever had done. And now you're talking about taking an organ out of me, plus my intestines, part of my intestines too.
Right.
So I'm just like, all this is coming at me, just like, wow. Like I really didn't have time to really like grasp it. You know, it was just like, this is what has to be done. And I was just like, okay. And it was like, well, if this is gonna save my life, then okay, we doing it. Take out whatever you need to take out, you know.
Right.
So I got past the fear of the surgery itself, you know,
Mm-hmm.
because I was more concerned about living, you know, at that
So,
point.
so does the kidney operation, the removal of your kidney, does that take place before the ulcer, before your surgery for the colitis, or what's the chronology?
So what was supposed to happen, and here's another interesting twist. I mean, this was quite an adventure. That whole hospital stay. So what was supposed to happen was I was going to be released from the hospital and go home and come back in 2 weeks and have the surgery where they're going to take both my left kidney out and the part of my intestines that needed to come out. So they're like, we need to do one more, like a scan or a scope that they wanted to do. They
Mhm.
wanted to do one more scope. So,
Now, did they ever tell you what stage the kidney cancer was?
oh yeah, I was just in the first stage.
Okay.
Yep.
Okay. So that's why they said
Literally.
they caught it
Yep, they
early enough.
caught it. Yeah, and in that particular, like a lot of cancers, if you catch them early enough, especially now with the treatments they have, you catch them early enough. Um, it's something like mine where they can just remove the organ, the area that, you know,
Yeah.
before it spreads, you have a higher survival, you know, chance of surviving. So
Hmm.
I was blessed that it happened the way that it happened, and they were able to do that. So I was supposed to have the surgery 2 weeks from that time. I go down, they say, we're going to do the scope, come back, we're going to let you go home. So they take me downstairs. I do this scope, something I had done so many times. I was, just, you know, it was nothing to me. They
Right.
bring me back up to my room. They take me off of the bed, and this is the graphic, gets kind of graphic here. There was a pool of blood underneath me when they pulled me off
Ah,
the bed to put me back into my bed in my hospital room. And they were like, oh my God, you just, you know, and I felt like I was getting weak. And that was why,
yeah.
because I lost all this blood from them, you know, doing this scope. So they give me a unit of blood. So I get, you know, they hook me up, give me the blood, they give me a unit of blood.
So you needed a transfusion.
Yeah, I had to take a unit of blood.
Wow.
They give that to me, and then the nurse leaves and is like, you know, you rest. Not, you know, obviously we can't let you leave yet. So I'm like, oh, okay. So I'm gonna be here another day. So about, I don't know, maybe an hour or two, I'm sleeping and I wake up and I'm like, oh man, I don't feel very well. So I get up to go to the bathroom in my hospital room, and I go in there and I'm going to use the bathroom, and I sit down on the toilet and I use the bathroom. What I thought I was using the bathroom. What was happening was that whole unit of blood they just gave me was coming right back out of me.
Oh my
And
goodness.
so I'm sitting there, and as this is happening, I'm like, I can see my face in the mirror, and my face is just as dark as I am. I was like white, and
Wow.
I just look,
Because
and
of
I
so
told,
much blood that you had
yeah,
lost.
yeah, and I told myself, I said, I'm about to die. I
Mm,
did. I like literally audibly said to myself, looking at myself, I said, I'm about to die, because I had never felt that way before. Like I had not, it was just flushed, just like
yeah.
it was, just, you know. And so I knew what was about to happen. I was going to pass out. So in those bathrooms, you know, they have those cords
Yeah.
for the nurse. I wasn't able to get to that cord. Like I was so weak. I put my hand out to grab it, and that was the last thing that I remembered. And that was it. So I wake up.
What?
Yeah, that was the last thing I remember. Now, I was hooked up to like some heart monitor thing. What happened was it set the alarm off on the floor. Well, my blood pressure crashed from the loss of the blood. So a blood pressure crash. And now everything I'm telling you now is what was told to me because I'm gone.
Right.
I'm out of it. So I'm from what I was told, when the nurse came in, I was on the ground and I was having a seizure. So I was
What?
seizing. Yeah, I was seizing. Of course, she, calls for the doctors, and I wake up, and all I remember is I had like maybe like 2 or 3 doctors around me, the nurse, and they're flashing lights in my eyes, and I couldn't talk because I was so weak from it.
Yeah.
And all I could do was smile at everybody. So I just smiled at them and the
You
doctors, and they all smiled back and said, okay, he's coming back around. And so all I heard the doctor says to the nurse is like, call his family. He's got to go to surgery. If he does not go to surgery tonight, it's going to be a problem.
and see, that's perfect. I mean, that is it right there. People will smile. You talk to them all day long. You can be at work. You can pass them in the grocery store and you get that smile, but you don't know the story. And I knew part of the story, but you've just given more of the story. I had no idea that you had passed out. You couldn't grab the cord because I'm thinking you're going to say, the cord, I was able to grab that. And what?
No,
I mean, and the interesting part about it is, in my dad's, last year, and just watching him go through that, and he was so weak.
Yep.
So when you're sharing it, I'm like, I get it, the blood loss, and just going through that illness and just pushing through it. Everybody's story doesn't end like how yours, you're talking about it now.
Right.
And you can talk about what people told you happened versus not being able to share that. Because I was thinking, I'm like, I don't remember you ever leaving until after the surgery. So they keep you in after they find you on the floor in the hospital.
So now I'm just like, he's definitely not going home. And not only is he not going home, but he has to go to surgery tonight. So what happened was, so you're talking about 2 different surgeries. Right. So 2 different surgeons as well. And everything aligned very well. I already had the 2 surgeons that was going to be working on me anyway. Gosh, I wish I could remember the doctor who took my kidney out, but I can't. He was a young doctor who he ended up, like right after that, he moved his practice to Holland. But a doctor by the name of Dr. Donald Kim was the doctor who was my ulcerative colitis doctor. And he was there at the hospital already doing a surgery. And the other doctor was I'm at Spectrum downtown at the time. The other doctor was over at Blodgett. So they notified him, let him know what was up. He was finishing up over there. So he had to, once he finished up over there, he came over, and 6.5 hours later of surgery.
What?
The surgery took 6.5 hours to do, to get the kidney out and part of the intestine that needed to come out. And from that point, I was actually one of the first people to stay in what is the Meyer Heart Center. Yeah. They use that area also as an intensive care unit. So I was able to stay there. Couldn't tell you what the room looked like. I heard it was pretty nice in there. At that time, I was out for maybe 2 or 3 days where I was totally out. And so I don't remember any of that stuff. Just hooked up to a lot of stuff. I just remember a couple of times waking up and feeling tubes up my nose, down my throat, and everything. And then they put me right back out every time I would kind of come to.
Wow.
And so I
Do
have
you
those.
remember any of the pain? Because if you have a kidney removed and they removed how much of your intestines and colon, how much, I mean, it was pretty much
I
everything, right?
It was, yeah. So yeah, when you have that type of surgery, so what was again here's another twist. The saga continues with my troubles in the hospital. So I have the surgery. I'm in intensive care for like 3 days, and then now I'm moving to a regular floor, and they put me on the floor, but I was having issues. Now, obviously, I've never had surgery. I don't know how I'm supposed to feel. I expect that I'm not going to be feeling comfortable. I had pain issues, of course, and they were giving me stuff for that. But I was having an issue with breathing as well. And come to find out, what was happening was from the intestinal surgery, there was a knot was starting to create down there. And so I was basically like plugged up.
What?
And so it wasn't supposed to happen. Now, 6.5
Well, wait.
hours of surgery.
Yeah, because I'm thinking, is this the surgery where they have the ileostomy?
This is what led to that. Yep.
Oh, okay.
Yep. So that's what happened. So what happened is I wasn't supposed to have that. And for people that don't know what that is, basically it's the bag. So they unhook everything inside of you. What happens, you're supposed to have those surgeries and heal up, and everything's supposed to go back together. Well, I wasn't healing properly because of this knot and stuff. So now, 2 days after I have this 6.5 hour surgery, I got a doctor back in my room telling me, and this is the same doctor that told me, he's like, yeah, once you do this, you're going to be fine. That same doctor had to tell me, I'm sorry, but you got to go back to surgery. And, and here's where being young and active, I was a weightlifter, still doing that, really into it. This really came into play for me. Although I started doing it for vanity reasons, this is where the health benefits came in of doing that. My body was strong enough. He says, if you were older or in horrible shape, there's no way we could do this second surgery in this same time frame that we're doing this.
So what's the time frame? You said a couple weeks?
No, that I had my 6.5 hour surgery, and 2 days later they were telling me I have to have another surgery. And yeah. So they had to do this surgery because I was plugged up, basically. So I couldn't breathe hardly because I felt like I was, full. So long story short.
But it doesn't end there, really. This is the importance of, not judging somebody. I mean, because again, looking at you, even before this happened, people will be like, oh my gosh, and I can say it. I mean, you're a nice looking guy and, you have worked out. So you've chiseled in the right spots, but people don't know. They didn't know what you had gone through from the age of 14 to your late 20s. And even continuing to fight some of those battles. But again, looking at you, you look amazing. You look great. I mean, you and Zoe, y'all working out the other day, and she's like, that's my dad, and, muscles and stuff. But you were having issues that you are still addressing today. So we're about to talk about the importance of working out and, being physically fit. And you even changed your diet somewhat since then. So talk about that a little bit, because that was in your late 20s and you are how old now?
I'm 45.
45. So over the past, let's just say 20 years, you've gone through this, but would you say you're on an uptick now, that where you are more in control? Because there was another health issue with your liver. Let's talk about that a little bit, and then some of the changes that you made to sort of have a healthier lifestyle.
Yeah. So, after going through all that stuff that I just mentioned, so basically after what I just told you, I ended up having like 3 more surgeries. Because I had to have ileostomy. I had to get it taken down and get put back together. So I was back to normal and everything. And other surgeries just to, for maintenance, basically things that I had to have. And so I did that. It was also discovered that I had, that just sounds so crazy. And another thing I got, but I have, and this one here, was something that was discovered by that same doctor who initially discovered that I had ulcerative colitis, a liver condition called sclerosing cholangitis. And basically, what that is I have. So your liver has like these trees, these veiny looking like type things like they run through, and things are supposed to flow through it, freely. With sclerosing cholangitis, basically, I get infections in my kidney from time to time, or in my liver from time to time. And every time that does that, it damages the liver. Thankfully, I haven't had that happen in a while, because every time it does it, I'm one step closer to being a person who may need a liver transplant.
And for people who don't know, sclerosing cholangitis is what Walter Payton had.
It's exactly what Walter Payton had. The difference between what happened with Walter Payton was Walter Payton didn't like to go to the doctor. And when he did finally get it really checked out, he had developed liver cancer. When you have sclerosing cholangitis, you up your chances to get liver or kidney, I keep saying kidney, liver cancer, almost 60%.
Oh, wow.
Yeah, that's what I was told years ago. It's like when you have this, you have a 60% chance. So you have over half a chance, to get cancer in that area. So it's very important to frequently get checks, which I do. I have all kind of specialists that I have specialists for kidneys, livers, my intestines. I have my primary doctor. I have all these amazing people that have helped me through the years, that I'm still working with, most of them. And so they tell me that, and that's something that I still have to this day, obviously. And it every now and then I am affected by it. I can get in, beginning stages of what those infections feel like, which is painful. It gets really painful. And what happens is things aren't flowing right in the liver, so it gets stagnant and therefore causing, an infection. So I still deal with that. But one of the things that has just been awesome for me, obviously, like we talked about, when you go through all these things that I've gone through, what comes along with that is changes in diets and different things like that. So I have a pretty normal diet now, but there was a time where there were a lot of foods I could not eat, and I was on a very strict diet, which it was not hard for me to do that, because they're like, you do this or you can find yourself back in these certain positions. So I was like, okay, not a problem.
Yeah. Right. Okay. Say less.
If you tell me I need to go outside and put barbecue sauce on the leaves and the grass outside to eat, then I'm going outside to do that. So,
wait, see, okay, that's your grandpa coming out through your dad. Now that humor. But I mean, seriously, you have gone through so much. Was there ever a point in your life where you thought, okay, Lord, why me? Did you ever question God about that?
absolutely.
Okay.
So this kind of takes back once I got out the hospital and everything. I came back and I was staying in my parents' house, and I had to have a home nurse for a while. I had to have someone change because it was known that I was going to have more surgeries. they didn't staple me up or they didn't do anything. So literally I had a big slice in my stomach, and the only thing that was stopping me from sticking my hand in my stomach and reaching in there was a couple gauze pads and some bandages.
Why are you so graphic?
But that was my life. So I
But
had
you
to have
know
a
what?
nurse.
That's good. I mean, to
Yeah.
share, because people don't really understand the just, I don't even know, have the words to describe what you went through. I mean, seriously.
Yeah. And so, to give perspective, I was in the hospital. I believe I went in just before Thanksgiving and I came home in January.
Mm,
So that's how long I was in the hospital.
I remember
I missed
that.
the holiday season. I missed the whole holiday season being in the hospital.
Yeah.
And so I went into the hospital. I was 230 pounds. When I came home, I was 167 pounds. Yeah.
Did you say 230
Yeah. I was 230 when I left,
to
and I
one?
was 167 when I came home. Yep.
Wow.
And I had to do therapy to walk again, because during that whole time when I was in the hospital, I was bed bound.
Yeah. Yeah.
So I had to do therapy to walk again, to build my strength back up, which was hard for me. And that kind of leads into what you were just kind of talking about, like how dealing with that, after, and the whys, and yes, I did question. I was like, what did what did I do to, deserve this? And then it was just
Yeah.
like, I have the way I was raised, my family, I tell people this all the time. We're not the family that will walk around saying, I love you all the time, and we were hugging each other all the time. But we know we love each other. But
Yeah.
I remember being in the hospital, and my dad was there with me almost every day. When I woke up, my dad was sitting. He had retired by this time, so he was there every day. And I'll never forget that. I just appreciate it. Every time I woke up, my dad was sitting right there.
Yeah.
And I remember when they told me I had to have this other surgery after 6.5-hour surgery, my dad, I just looked at the doctor and I had tears in my eyes, because I was like, man, why? Like, can we just avoid the second surgery? Like, I want to be on the road to recovery. And I just remember my dad just like sternly look at me. He says, you have to do what you have to do. And that was it. That's all he said to me. And I just looked at him like, dang, really? That's it? And it was that simple for me. And I was just like, wow, it was simple, but it was like deep at the same time. I was like, he's right. I just have to do that. So when I found myself in the moments, after the surgery, when I was saying why, I'm just like, you know what, you have to go through this for whatever reason it is. You're going to go through this, but you're going to be okay, because a few weeks ago, you said you couldn't go through this, you couldn't do this, and here you are. And it wasn't without, you still have these doubts going through all these things about why and all that. I was depressed. I went into depression. Which was, kind of expected, because I went from this healthy guy who was, lifting weights and doing all these fun things and being active and being able to run around outside with my kids and all that, to not being able to do anything but lay in a bed. So I kind of went into a depression, and I, like a lot of people, I had a weak moment where I almost became addicted to the medicine that I was taking. They sent me home with Percocets, and which was very strong. Yeah, they were strong medicine. And at first I was taking them like I was supposed to. It was like, whenever you feel pain, because you're going to feel pain.
Yeah.
Take these. So I was doing that, but then it became where I was taking them to make myself feel better and to forget about what I was going through. And
So what effect does that have? I mean, I've heard of Percocets in like songs and stuff the kids listen to, but what effect does it have? I mean, is it numbing, or is it like more euphoric?
It took me away from, literally it made me forget about what was happening at the moment. And the crazy thing is, it was only for maybe 10 or 15 minutes that I felt like this, like where I just felt great. Like, I'm like, oh, I feel good right now. And so you crave that. You crave feeling better.
Wow.
You crave to feel as normal as possible or to run away from whatever it is. And I was one of those people before something like that. I'm like, how do people get hooked on, like, how does a person get hooked on drugs, and how do they,
Yeah.
and I was, thankfully I went through my first bottle, and I was not supposed to be on my second bottle, going for a refill for another 2 weeks. So I had
Wow.
taken a lot, and I caught myself.
Okay.
I caught myself. I said, I realized I was taking that medicine just to feel good.
Mm.
And so I called my doctor and I said, I'm not taking any more Percocets. You got to give me something else, or I'm not taking nothing. I said, because I'm dependent on this now. Like
Yeah.
this, I wake up every day and the first thing I want to do is pop one of these pills. And before I go to bed, I want to pop these pills. And in between,
Yeah.
that pop these pills. So, obviously my doctor's like, thank you. That's good that you recognize that.
Yeah.
And so I switched medications. And from that point on, it was just kind of a healing process for me.
Yeah.
I had gone through a lot, like in terms of just finding out who I was, like how
Mm-hmm.
tough, to find out how tough I am, and not in the macho sense, but just like I told myself, I was like, I can't go through all this stuff, but I did.
Yeah.
I
I
was like,
mean, mentally.
yeah, mentally, I had already told myself that I was like, I can't do this. Like, I never got to the point where I was like, I just wish I was dead.
That was
But
going to be my next question. Did you
yeah,
ever
no,
feel suicidal?
I didn't get that far. But I could tell you, if I had died, I wouldn't have been mad about it. But I never told myself like, but
Yeah.
but I had 4 people who I had to be alive for, which
Yeah.
was my driving force, to get better, to get healthy. And the more I thought about it, I was just like, I have to get better. I have to
Yeah.
be, I got to be able to, and they looked at me as funny. Kaylee's, who's our oldest, because she came out first with the twins, she gave me a book.
Don't tell Jana that.
Yeah, she gave me a book, and it has these different things in it that she gave me for Christmas.
Yeah.
And it has these different questions that she was answering. And one of the questions was like, what do you remember about your dad when you were little? And her answer was, or what did you think of him? Like what word popped in your head? And it was strong.
Mm.
So in their eyes, I was this strong figure, like this dude, this strong, man. And I was just like, oh my God, I'm not that anymore. Like, and I remember thinking that when I was sick at that time, like, I'm not that guy anymore. My kids aren't used to seeing me like this, laying in this bed and I can't do nothing. And,
Yeah.
Roman, baby, I remember him coming to the hospital and him, trying to jump up get on the bed with me and stuff.
Yeah.
And I couldn't let him get on the bed with me because he would have fell inside my stomach because I had a big hole in it, so.
You are a mess. I mean,
But
but you know what? Keeping all that in perspective, I think that is true. I know when Kaylee said she bought the book, she said, Mom, I got this book. And I'll jokingly bring in the air fryer. Because she said, well, Dad wanted an air fryer. I said, but that book, Kaylee's, she literally said, I have got to take my time and think about what to say because this is so meaningful. And for her to take her time, in my mind, that's even more telling than an air fryer or any other thing. It came from her heart, and
yeah,
she wanted to make sure that she got you something for Christmas. So that is telling right there
yeah,
of,
I
just
messaged
that person.
her. Yeah, I
Yeah.
messaged her yesterday and I said, I was messing with her. I said, you know what? I think this is the best probably the best gift, one of the best gifts I ever got. And I meant that when I said that. And I was like, I still want an air fryer, but you know,
Right.
this is a great gift, to get. And it just, going back, I I had to be there for them, and they literally, and they'll never know how much they had to do with me getting up out of the bed, doing my therapy to walk and get my strength back, walking the steps. I mean, I literally, they were like, it's on you. Once I got to a point where I didn't have this nurse anymore, it's like, it's up to you to do these things. And I remember, like, I got to get up and walk around the house because
Yeah.
I want to get back out there, and I want to, we used to go to Ken O'Shea and play and do all these things. I was like, I want to get back to that.
Yeah.
And so they were the driving force for me to get back, and obviously other things. I just had to get back to life and get back to myself. And, it was a long, tough road. And, again, I still have health issues now, but I have been able to manage them,
Yeah.
obviously the Lord, all these great doctors that he's placed in my life, and just, great supports that I have had throughout my life. And,
Yeah.
to kind of tie everything, I went through all this stuff since I was 14. And it's weird to say, but I'm grateful that I went through it,
Mhm.
because it has shaped me into the person I am today. You know, I hopefully am seen as a peaceful person, but I think that had I not gone through a lot of things that I've gone through, I most definitely wouldn't be at peace with a lot of things that have happened to me in my life. You and I have, that's a whole nother story, but I've been through some stuff just as you have,
Right.
that we've gone through together. And, but I don't think I would be who I am today had I not gone through that. So I think it taught me to embrace whatever challenges ever since that happened.
Yeah.
Whenever I'm challenged now, I just think about everything that I've already been through. And I tell myself, look, dude, you done been through this, you done been through that, you dealt with this. This is just another challenge in your life, and you can get through it. And so
Yeah.
I think, we all have to take our tragedies and make them into triumphs.
Yeah.
I think we have to do that. Everything that happens bad needs to be a lesson, and used positively as you can, and you can make it, for
Yeah.
yourself. You know.
Um, and just so you know, people have been watching, people have made comments. Um, I mean, one of my elementary schools, thank God for grace and mercy, Mr. Jeffries. That was from Charnel. I have a cousin, Kim. She said, very interesting. Kim Staten, the Twins basketball coach, she said, what a blessing of growth sitting here and watching you two in this interview. I remember a lot of this, but certainly didn't know all the details. Love it in so many ways. Bonita, love this. And praying God continue to heal and bless you, Mr. Jeffries. Kathy Newton, God was in the plan, GJ. This is interesting.
OCN, that's my girl.
Yeah, so we've been talking about doing this interview since the summer, and I wasn't quite sure. And it's just like you said, those tragedies into triumph. Losing my dad was a great loss for me, and I felt in so many ways that because of losing him, there's more that I need to do.
Yeah.
Um, and I don't know what was triggering that, but just being able to move forward and just step out on faith and do what I enjoy doing. And like I was saying last week, I love to talk. I love hearing stories. Everybody has a story. No matter what it is, it can be positive, it can be negative. And you shared a little bit of both through your conversation with me tonight. And I'm glad that our children were the catalyst to help you to continue to move forward. And I was just sharing with Kayleese or Zoe, I was sharing with them. I said, your dad, when he is in a good space and he's healthy and he's thriving, that makes me feel good. And they're like, well, Mom, I'm like, no, you don't understand. I said, when you know that your children love their parents, and if their parents are thriving, that means they're thriving. But when that doesn't happen, they feel the brunt of that. As when we sat here not too long ago and listened to their stories. So I'm so glad that we were able to have the conversation. I'm glad that, we're at a point in our lives where we can have these conversations and be okay with it. But your story, I'm so glad you shared it as a testament to what people have responded here. Um, do you have any last words? Maybe somebody who may have felt something, or just if you can think of something that will help somebody to either go get checked or know that they can get through this, or the impact just what encouraging words do you have to share as we wrap up?
Yes. I think definitely, in particular, I know growing up, it was kind of, in the Black community, you didn't hear about people going to get checked up too much and going to the doctors. And, it had to be extreme. It had to get really bad. I think, obviously, as we get older, things start to fall apart a little bit. But even before that happens, it is so important to get all the checkups that you can get, check things out. Again, like I said, I was very blessed to have had everything discovered when it was discovered, or I might not be sitting here having this conversation right now.
Yeah.
It'd be a whole different thing for my kids right now. Their lives have gone in an even crazier direction. And so I would say to especially Black men, to get those checkups is, don't be too macho. If something don't feel right, go to the doctor. That's what they're there for. That's what God bless these people, all these physicians, these brains to help us out and get us and keep us, because it's not just about us. Most of us have kids, a sister, a brother, a mother, a father, somebody who loves you, who cares
Right.
about you, that wants you to be okay. And so whenever we're doing these things, we're not just doing them for ourselves, we're doing them for our families and those who love us. And so
Yeah.
I would say, health is wealth. I think it ties into not just your physical, but just, when you're healthy, you think clear, you feel, when that that things are going right for you, you inspire yourself. Then I'm feeling good, I can do this, I can do that, and you aspire to do things. So I think that anybody who really invest in yourself, I mean, you can't invest in nothing better than yourself.
Amen.
There's nothing better you're going to invest in yourself, because when you do that, you're also investing in your friends, your community, and God, because at the end of the day, he's going to get all that glory. He should, at least.
Yeah.
He should, at least. So
That's good right there.
that.
So you preaching now. See, I have your deacon manual and stuff over here. The kids were like, for real? I'm like, yeah. So anyways, I want to thank you once again for sharing your story. For anybody who missed it, it'll be up for the next week, and then I'll post it to the YouTube page, Stories with Kishen, Ordinary People with Extraordinary Lives. And my name is Kishen. I am the CEO of me. And I encourage you to be the CEO of you, just like George just shared his story. If he didn't value his life and take charge of his life and become the chief executive officer of his health, we may not even have this conversation. So, Lord George, I thank you for taking the time and sharing your story, sharing your journey, because it's been a journey. And again, thank thank you to everybody who tuned in, and feel free to share this, like it, make comments, and you'll hear more next week. Thank you.